China's new C19 exam policy is drawing attention. It is an annual swab test for the Wuhan pneumonia. Instead of taking a sample with a cotton swab from the nostrils, it is a method of testing with a cotton swab in the anus. However, this testing method has led to the reaction that it is insulting and more fearful than the virus. Foreigners are no exception to this test conducted in Beijing and some part of China. On the 26th, a story of a Korean resident who was forced to do anus swab testing during his entry into China was come out. However, it was revealed that Korean asked the Korean embassy in China for help and eventually replaced it with a fecal sample submission inspection, not an anus swab test. The Korean said he was even more surprised that the Chinese who were quarantined at the same hotel did not show any reaction to the notice of the anus examination. In the CCP, where the Communist Party's order is the same as the law, forced annual exams may not be surprising. However, there are a number of Chinese people who are giving up their return to home for the Chinese New Year due to the fear of the anus test. China has been celebrating itself for continuously winning against the virus since last year. But why did this kind of inspection come up? Then let's check what's really going on in China. A very long line of people was filmed in Beijing's representative downtown Wangfujing. There are all lines of the people for RNA test for Wuhan pneumonia. Its Wangfujing is like this Zhongnanhai, a former imperial garden in the imperial city Beijing, where Xi Jinping and some high-ranking officials live, is not already a safe zone. The government has issued a first RNA test for all residents of Zhongcheng, a middle of Beijing, from January 22 to 23. In Beijing, not only Chaoyang, where the largest number of foreign companies are concentrated, but also Sunyi District in the north and Haidian District in the west, are suffering from the Wuhan pneumonia. Government medical personnel were already deployed in the Wangfu of Shanghai. They are conducting RNA tests of all residents in the neighborhood where infected people have occurred, while blocking outside from entering the city. Also in here, government workers are blocking the entire road and blocking access. In Shanghai, Wuhan pneumonia infections continue to occur in 4 districts. In one building, a super spreader comes out and government is tracking hundreds of the contacts. Piano teacher, a super spreader, is known to have contacted a total of 400 people, including 100 students. In Heilongjiang of Hebei province, the phenomenon that occurred during the early days of the Wuhan pneumonia is happening again. Suddenly, a person on the street falls on the floor without sign. However, this has been found only in China, and some suspect that China is making intentional videos to use the C19 politically. However, China doesn't report on the consequences of those people who suddenly fall on the street, so nobody knows the exact situation in there. Many houses are being sealed off in many areas. Even in Harbin, all passengers in the bus was quarantined. RNA testing tents were set up inside the Harbin Convention Center, and the Tonghua of Jilin province has begun containment of the entire city. In Tonghua, all residents were required to self-isolate and they were prohibited from going out, so only occasional vehicles were seen on the streets where people cannot be seen. In the extreme cold, people are lining up for get RNA test, and authorities are sealing the entrance of the houses where infected people have been found. On the outskirts of Shijiazhuang of Hebei province, a vast number of temporary containment facilities are being built. As it happened in Wuhan, temporary containment facilities and temporary ward have been built since early January, day and night. It is said that more than 1,000 beds have been made, but the exact size is not known yet. This winter, Chinese people have been suffering from extreme cold, Wuhan pneumonia, and unprecedented food shortages. Due to the US presidential election and political quarrels, there is not much coverage, but the situation in China is very serious. People may ask how food shortages are possible in 2021, but the actual situation is not like that. It is a strange phenomenon that occurs because people cannot get food outside their homes due to strict containment measures. Currently, the city suffering from food shortages due to Wuhan pneumonia in China is the northeastern Chinese city of Tonghua. On January 23rd, this video was filmed. A resident on the first floor of an apartment which was quarantined, sending food to a resident on the 6th floor who had nothing to do it through window. On the same day, a scene of a resident shouting "Go Tonghua" in the apartment was filmed. In the winter of 2019, people shouted "Go Wuhan," but nothing has changed yet even after 1 year. In this severe situation on January 21st, a deputy mayor of Tonghua will close the city without food, apologized and said that medicine and food will be delivered soon to each house by authorities. However, this video was filmed in Tonghua on January 26, just 2 days after mayor's announcement. Due to the strict containment measures, many people in the city were quarantined without food, and when there was nothing to eat at house, people shouted late at night for help. The market has enough food. Nevertheless, the reason they cannot get food is that they can't go outside for buying something to eat from the market due to the strict containment measures. Of course, on the 24th, the authorities announced that local officials would deliver food to homes, but it didn't actually happen in most areas. In this situation, the Chinese citizens who do not trust the government began to help each other. On January 27, despite snow and cold weather, residents of Jilin province are sending food and vegetables for the city of Tonghua, which is suffering from lack of food. The government put stickers to seal the door to prevent them from coming out of their house, and the reality of China, where only citizens suffer, began in 2019 and continues until 2021. Under these circumstances, the Tonghua city has declared that they built 1,186 isolation wards from January 22 to 27. As you saw, the situation in China is not normal. Then what is the position of the Biden administration to China for now? From now on, the word China virus and Wuhan virus used by Trump are not supposed to use in the United States. This is because Biden banned the use of China virus or Wuhan pneumonia in connection with geographical locations through another executive order. Specifically, Biden banned the expressions like Wuhan virus from the federal government, saying that Asian Pacific Americans, their families, communities, and businesses are in danger due to xenophobic remarks.
Today, I'm directing federal agencies to combat resurgence of xenophobia, particularly against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders that we've seen skyrocket during this pandemic. This is unacceptable, and it's un-American. I've asked the Department of Justice to strengthen its partnership with the Asian American and Pacific Islander community to prevent those hate crimes. I've also asked the Department of Health and Human Services to put out best practices for combating xenophobia in our national response to COVID.
However, Joe Biden didn't say anything about the newly discovered Japanese variant, British variant, or South Africa variant. Until now, people have been using the expressions such as Spanish flu, African swine fever, or Japanese encephalitis. But for Biden, Spain, Africa, Japan, England, and South Africa are fine, but China is the country where it has to have a consideration. As you can see, there is already data on the virus spreading rapidly from China since January 2020. And everyone knows that this virus has spread from Wuhan to all over the world. Nevertheless, the expression of Wuhan pneumonia, China virus, or any virus related with China have been banned in the United States.
Communist China. Joe Biden, one of the orders he signed says you can't refer to the COVID-19 virus as the China virus or the Wuhan virus because, God forbid, we acknowledge where it came from and which country spent months silencing, oppressing, imprisoning the doctors trying to stop the spread of this virus. And the Chinese Communist government bears direct responsibility for the hundreds of thousands of lives that have been lost because of COVID-19. And the Biden administration, it seems virtually none of them are willing to actually say that out loud.
And as you say, we are no longer allowed to use the term China virus as the stomping on free speech continues drip by drip, Senator.
In the case of the Trump administration, the C19 was called as a Wuhan virus or the CCP virus from the Trump and Pompeo.
I've called it the Wuhan virus almost since its inception. It began in Wuhan. It is, in fact, a virus that came from that place. We know that the Chinese Communist Party covered that up. We know that they disappeared doctors and journalists who wanted to write about it were told they couldn't. I hope, and I'm counting on this next administration to do what the American people demand of them and continue to confront the Chinese Communist Party.
A week after Trump tested positive for the C19 last year, he said, "I be crazy horrible China virus, China will pay a great price." Still in the 2021, no one knows what the actual state of C19 in China is like. But at the same time, everyone knows that China is hiding something from the world. However, Biden administration's pro-China tendency makes people to worry about the future.
But John Kerry said, cooperation with China is the key to progress on climate change, and that climate is the #1 issue between the U.S. and China, as if China has not broken promise after promise across the world.
Well, Maria, that's right, and there is a hopeless naivete among the Biden administration. You know, one of the really disturbing patterns that we've seen come out in this past week with Biden nominee after Biden nominee is a warm embrace of China. That you want to talk about one of the most dramatic shifts the next 4 years are going to entail is the Biden administration crawling into bed with China. You know, I asked multiple Biden nominees, for example, whether they would maintain Huawei on the entities list because Huawei is a global espionage company masquerading as a telecom company. Not a single one of the Biden nominees was willing to commit to keep Huawei on that list. Today, when I was questioning Biden's nominee to be UN ambassador, I asked her a simple question, whether China had committed a genocide, as the U.S. State Department determined, targeted at the Uyghurs, 1 million people in concentration camps. She refused even to answer that straightforward question. And so you've said you were horrified by seeing firsthand what the Confucius Institute was doing. Did you keep the money?
I can tell you what I did with the money. I give a tremendous amount of my very meager resources to humanitarian efforts. And
so you did keep the money, though? You didn't give it back?
I did. I did not give it back. It was not from the Confucius Institute. It was from Savannah State University.
Now, you also describe, you said you've spoken out against China's abusive practices. Perhaps you have elsewhere, but I can tell you I'm holding the speech you gave at the Confucius Institute, and I can't find a single word of criticism in this speech. This speech is cheerleading for the Chinese Communist Party. You praise the Belt and Road Initiative. You praise their entrapping developing countries in debt bondage. And you say the United States should follow China's model. Is it the role of America's UN ambassador to be cheering on the Chinese Communist Party at the expense of the developing world and at the expense of America?
Senator, it was not my intention, nor do I think that I cheered on the Chinese Communist Party. What I recommended in that speech is that Africans need to open their eyes on how they deal with the Chinese. And I would like to see the United States government do more in Africa to compete with
My final question, did you have even a word of criticism about the Chinese Communist Party, about its murders, about its tortures, about its concentration camps, about its genocide? Did you have even a word of criticism in the speech you gave at the Confucius Institute?
I spoke about human rights there. That's the speech, but you don't see my other engagements with students who ask questions that I answered frankly.
What do you think of this video? Thanks for watching, comments, likes, and sharing. Be safe.